Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to True Sight, a meme-free zone for the best analysis and news from the Dota 2 world.
That's the best lie you've told all day.
Don't laugh. We don't tolerate memes. We don't encourage memes. Back in my day, we called them jokes. But apparently they're called memes now.
Well, can we have a Kappa face just slide across the screen?
We actually had a Kappa face at the Friday show. It was a beautiful thing. We'll have to incorporate. But anyway, welcome to True Sight, the Dota 2 show brought to you weekly every Wednesday by the fine folks here at Esports. I, of course, am Ian Double John Barker, as I like to go by Ian J. Barker, which is my human name.
That's my human name.
This is Lee Malice Massey. Lee, how are you doing this evening?
I can't come up with a human name fast enough. But, I mean,
your human name is Lee Massey.
God damn it. I want a different one. You let me re-roll.
Joining us tonight, we have a slate of wonderful guests. Joining us first off the top of the show is SunTzu and Noxville to talk a little bit about the upcoming ESL competition, and then after that we will be talking to the ever handsome and growing more handsome by the day, like the picture of Dorian Gray. Hey, that rhymed. Is none other than Maut, the broadcaster that you know and love from the North American scene. But we're going to kick things off, first of all, with a little panel, a little bit of discussion, and it's Noxville and SunTzu, so we know it won't be friendly. Boys, how are you doing this evening?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Yeah, time zone's got the better of me here, so...
Let me just...
I'm an hour ahead of you, dude.
Let's just recount for our audience what happened.
No.
Noxville, we messaged Noxville, and he responds, I'm in a game, hold on a minute. So if any of you are looking to book Noxville in the future, just know that that's the kind of punctuality you could expect from one of Dota's finest analytical minds. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're not here just to talk about Noxville's terrible scheduling habits. We're also here to talk about ESL Manila, the upcoming major that we're all very excited about, featuring such teams as Fnatic, Wings, Complexity, and only one of the teams that you're actually interested in seeing, Team Secret. But we're all eager to see how the Artesian Universe lineup pans out. A lot of teams will go into the weekend expecting to make waves, especially with recent roster shakeups, putting team chemistry in a bit of a nebulous place, if you will.
Good word.
But only one team can take the championship. And I actually want to hear from you guys with all of this kerfuffle, with all of this confusion, with all of the changes that have happened. Who is going to take ESL Manila?
Did you go to like Dr. Seuss's Thesaurus or something today?
What did I say?
What the heck is that?
What?
Anyway, Noxville, SunTzu, what's up, man?
It's going to be secrets. I mean, come
Oh
on.
my God.
It's definitely going to be secret. Let's just be real here.
Like, realistically, it's going to be secret, but, like, realistically, Batman v Superman was going to make all the money in the world, and then it was complete train wreck. Mm-hmm. So we know just because you take the best names that you can find, that doesn't guarantee success. So
it's true.
Team Secret's going to fail horribly, and Team Liquid's going to get their first big win.
Exactly the kind of this is exactly the kind of disagreement
I like it though. I mean, like he had a good opinion. I mean, he says that Team Liquid's going to get their first major win, and Team Secret's going to fall flat on their face, which is physically possible. I mean, we could see the most amazing like baby rage moments of all time on the stage at Frankfurt. So I'm excited. No, it's Manila.
Yeah, it's Manila. Now Nox, to be fair, you seem pretty confident about that opinion. Nox, give us your 60-second rundown of why Team Secret is the favorite headed into Manila.
Okay, so Secret have got the experience and they've got the skill. I think the key thing is the experience in a tournament like this. New roster, they've got, I mean, of the top 50 players with most LAN appearances, they're the only team other than Alliance to have all 5 of their players in that list. Liquid has 4, EG has 3, and no other team has got more than that. So they've definitely got the experience. They've got the leadership of Puppy. They've got probably in every single position for their cause. They've got like either the top player in the West or top 3. Even if you're really, really, really conservative like SunTzu, you'll agree to that. So I think that they've got like everything they need to. And the only question is it all going to come together like a good cake? Sumail and Arteezy didn't mesh that well at first, but I think that Envy and Arteezy gonna seal the deal here.
So you're putting your money on Arteezy, who I might remind you joined EG before its longest stretch of second place finishes in the history of the organization. What makes you so confident that Arteezy is going to make the difference on this squad instead?
Well, it's just Universe likes to play relatively greedy in the offlane. Not as like on a scale of 1 to Admiral Bulldog, it's only like 5. But yeah, like Sumail and him didn't seem to just gel. They seemed to fill a similar role in many ways. They were constantly swapping for periods of times, and then there were some tournaments where Arteezy was only playing safe lane and Sumail was only playing off lane. And the one thing about Arteezy is that he also has a very wide hero pool, but at some tournaments we just saw him play like 5 heroes, like over and over and over. So I think that we need to see Arteezy go back to his roots, back to the way of the Jackie Maut, and it's going to come through together. I'm really glad that Universe came with him, despite Misery being like a really, really cool person and also a really good player, very important to the success of Secret. I think that Universe is technically a benefit for that team, but yeah, I think that they got like everything. It's like a big puzzle, and there's no pieces missing this time.
Now, one thing I want to mention is the idea of chemistry. When we had Bulba on the show, he talked a lot about how the chemistry in EG has improved, and that's something that they think is going to be an asset for them moving forward. I mean, we all have seen the jokes, the macro images about Jackie Mao and Arteezy. Is this pairing for all of its? I mean, for as much as we in Dota ship Jackie Mao and Arteezy, is this pairing enough to put this team over the edge? Because it looked like with Misery that sometimes Secret could look a little bit one-dimensional.
I mean, you can be one-dimensional and still be like amazing. Like Alliance were in some sense one-dimensional at TI3, but they won. They dropped like to games against only 2 teams.
Oh, dude! Hey, SunTzu, what do you think, man? I want to hear. I want to hear from you.
Let's give Nox his piece, and then SunTzu will get his time.
Okay, when I say one-dimensional, I don't mean one-dimensional in terms of strategy. I just mean in terms of how they like dynamic, how their team is set up. They might have different strategies to accomplish that, but I don't think that Secret are going to like force in the same way that the Secret when Zai was on the team. I don't think that like that style, they kind of forced their own style on everyone else, like the DAC Secrets that we saw. I don't think we'll see that anymore. I think that's we're going to see lots of different options. We're going to see crazy stuff. Like we're going to see some Navi-esque type of stuff come out of this new roster. When I say Navi-esque, I mean back when Navi was like a great team.
Yeah, obviously a bit of a far cry from where they were before. So we assumed what you meant. Now, SunTzu, Nox has had a chance to say his piece. There's obviously some disagreement on the panel, which we have no problem with.
We love it, actually.
Tell us why Noxville is incorrect and always late to the shows that we book for him.
Whoa, dude!
I kid.
Well, I mean, I think he is correct in saying that sort of like this Secret lineup it's going to be fairly steady in terms of how they're going to play, because there's not a whole lot of room to swap around roles and stuff like that. The problem is, though, that if you thought that Arteezy and Sumail was a greedy 1-2 pairing, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, check him out.
Envy
what do you think of that, Nox?
That's going to be way too greedy.
Do you think that's a fair assessment? I mean, do you think that's fair to say, Noxville?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Envy has historically been a really, really greedy player, but he has also at times, maybe in Cloud9, I think was like his longest run and the biggest stats to look at. Like there were times when he started taking a backseat, taking more of like Queen of Pain, or like I would kind of classify it as like S4-esque heroes. Heroes which don't necessarily need...
He's not as impactful when he plays that stuff.
That's true, but so that's the dynamic, is that they're going to have to shift between games who becomes more of a heavy farmer, like the true 1 versus the true 2. But I don't think we'll see lane swaps as much as EG tried with Sumail and Arteezy, swapping between mid and safe. I think we'll see Arteezy mid 90% of games, and we'll see We'll just see him playing different types of heroes and in different styles.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Now, SunTzu, it sounds like you had a little bit more to say on the matter. Go ahead and prove Noxville wrong once and for all.
Wow.
Well,
we love you.
Just sort of in general, sort of looking at this lineup and looking at sort of how Secret were playing at the Shanghai Major. I mean, they already sort of figured out that they couldn't get the right performances out of Misery and out of Weeha by starving them for a farm. So they went way more greedy, and that was sort of the core of their strategy at Shanghai. And they generally won every game that went like past 40 minutes or 35, something like that. Won every game. With this lineup, it's in general, it just feels even more greedy, and I'm not sure how much further you can actually keep pushing that, and especially as teams are going to have they've been looking at what Secret were doing at that event, and they're probably going to sort of expect it as well now. So there's more room to counterplay that right now.
Yeah, but I mean, MVP was the team that kind of was the most aggressive, early pushing, early fighting team, and Secret,
Secret never beat them.
It's true, but I mean, do you think that they would never beat? Do you think that Secret would have lost?
No, I don't know. I think Secret sort of almost had the right idea when they were playing against MVP in the group stages. They almost had the right idea with. They went into the second game of that series, and they basically sort of tried to trap MVP in one of their standard drafts, which is basically they start out with Furion, they go third pick Disruptor, and they try and get Invoker in the last phase. That's generally where they get it, but they can also swap around where they get the Invoker. So they tried to box them into that, but then MVP switched it up and just went full push, and Secret couldn't deal with that. So I think there's different ways you can deal with Secret in the early game. A lot of what they were doing at Shanghai was just abusing the fact that they were the first ones to figure out that Enigma. You can't really control him right now. There's just not enough enemy jungle control. And he gets control of his own jungle, and then you have a big team fight ultimate, and that generally gives you the means to get back in the game, even if you lose the early game. Mm-hmm. But if you start banning out that Enigma, the other hero that they were running was the offlane Tidehunter. I'm not that excited about the idea of having Universe run Tidehunter. I think that's going to be more likely that they try and fall Universe back to Void in this lineup. But then Void's win rates have been dropping a lot as well because teams have started to figure out how to deal with Void. So there's a number of problems there, and I'm not sure exactly what their solution is going to be. There's a good chance that they do find a solution, but if they don't, then there's a lot of space for faster-paced teams to punish them.
Yeah, sure, but remember, there's two things with that. First of all, Universe has played a huge amount of heroes. He's very versatile, any lane. ESL Manila's coming up, and for the most part, a lot of teams are also going to be experimenting new things. Even though the new patch hasn't come out, they might be experimenting specific styles or strategies that we might not have seen this patch. And to have versatile players like Arteezy and Universe on your team makes it a lot easier to adapt.
How versatile is Arteezy right now? He used to be versatile. He used to be when he started out, he was actually able to play those Bat Rider mids and stuff like that. But I haven't seen him he just plays carry heroes.
He plays Sven.
I mean, he's played like 22 heroes.
Don't let him do that again.
We know he plays Sven. Sometimes not so well, sometimes very well. It all depends on whether or not Furion is picked.
On a different note, I wanted to ask you guys, like, okay, so let's get off of Secret. We're talking about Secret because, like, everyone wants to talk about them. They're, like, the big subject right now. True. Who do you think is somebody that we're not thinking about? Who do you think is the underdog going into ESL Manila? What do you think we can expect that isn't Secret beating everybody?
Well, there's a couple of teams here who are a bit hard to call right now. Like, Fnatic's looking really good in Southeast Asia. Like, they've beaten MVP like the last 3 times that they faced them, and they're like, it was like 8-1 in games or something like that.
No, it's 16, 15 and 5 or something.
Just the last.
In the last week, they've only lost 1 series to Fnatic this patch, to MVP this patch, and that was at Shanghai.
Yeah, but like at the same time, I sort of feel like it's MVP hasn't been playing as well. So like Fnatic is doing good, but it's hard to say how good they've actually been doing.
I spoke to Fnatic's coach and just after the Shanghai, and he said it's actually really weird. We were so blown away by MVP's performance.
Yeah,
it's the first like we scrim against them a lot. It's like we never lose them in scrims. Like in any like best of 3 scrim, we'll never ever lose. This was like the first time they've beaten us in scrims or in serious competition. And since then, Fnatic hasn't lost either. So Fnatic are doing it, and because my good friend Scant and SunTzu's great ally is not here, I have to say that like Fnatic statistics at the moment, they're like technically ranked number 1 in the world, despite the implicit knowledge that this is from a region where they're isolated somewhat from the rest of the world, so their value is inflated. But it's like still a very impressive achievement to get a rating as high as they've got. And we'll see, I mean, after this tournament, obviously the different regions stabilize a little bit because we have Mineski and Fnatic coming out of the SEA region. But I wouldn't be surprised if Fnatic make 1 or 2 upsets at this tournament, even when it's...
Now, SunTzu, you make a compelling case for Fnatic, and that's obviously your dark horse. But who's your front runner? Speaking of horses, who's your front runner to take this event? I think there's some people wearing blue jerseys at home that'd be excited to hear your answer.
Yeah, I like Team Liquid sort of where they are right now. I think if you just look at all the positions, all the players, they've got some really strong players. The problem that they've had hasn't been strategic. It hasn't been in terms of the player skill, really. It's just that they've had trouble getting everyone consistently performing and at the same time, and especially they've had trouble getting them to perform under big pressure. But they've been slowly getting better at that.
So you're making the argument that this team has done what it's done recently off the back of maybe some lackluster performances from his members. I mean, that has to bode well for the team when things are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, like when we saw Mind Control come online, he was playing Furion in some of the last games at Shanghai, and he absolutely demolished on that hero. So if you get one of those performances out of him, like the problem is they've been sort of trying to put him on heroes that didn't really work that well for him. For example, Clockwork. I have some memories of some fairly bad games of Clockwork from him. But if you sort of accommodate him, Matumba Man right now, he's slowly but surely making the case for him to be one of the very best carriers in the world right now. He's just very consistent and a very, very good farmer, and he makes good decisions, and he works at constantly becoming better. He just looks better almost every tournament that we see him. Jerax is doing a great job of controlling tempo in the early game. A really strong ganking support. Kuro is as solid as he's ever been, so they have a really strong support pairing. the biggest problem almost right now is getting Fada to consistently perform at the level where he used to be. Like, he used to be considered one of the very best mids in Europe. And that was like just about a year ago. Right now, it's like he's got some good games, but he feels a bit too passive, a bit too farm heavy. And I don't know if that's just sort of a mode that he's got himself stuck in. But if they can sort of try and get him heroes where he can be a bit more involved, I think that could work a lot in their favor. Just to have him controlling the tempo as well a bit.
Now Noxville, we gave SunTzu a couple shots at you. It's only fair that we give you that courtesy in return. So tell us, you predict Secret and obviously you can't deny Liquid's a strong team. Are you arguing that Liquid isn't peaking at the right moment? It's just that they can't reach the level that Secret is at.
No, I don't think that's the issue. I think that just Secret versus Liquid is a specific matchup that Secret has like an inherent advantage in. Kyorahi versus Puppy, the age-old friendship turned rivalry now. If you look at Shanghai, when they got to the finals, Liquid just seemed like they didn't have a plan. And I don't think that's going to change very much. It's just their specific styles, they just clash in a way where Secret's advantage was like absolutely massive. I think it actually just gets bigger with the player changes. But yeah, I mean, Liquid have got like the second highest win rate this patch of the teams with like more than 50 games. They've played a huge amount. They've played like maybe 7 or 8 most games this patch in pro games, like over 70. Like, they are very, very much on top of their form at the moment. So if there is a chance and there is a team that can beat them, that can beat Secret, it's probably Liquid. I think that it's just a clash of styles that favor Secret too much.
Do you really think it was the clash of styles, though? Because for me, like what Secret is trying to do, they're playing greedy and they're trying to get back in the game with mid-game team fighting. Liquid is playing to win the lanes and they're playing to dominate mid-game team fights. That should be a direct counter. Almost.
It should be, but it's walking a tightrope. It's walking a tightrope.
No, but the problem is that they just crumble under pressure. They crumble in both their games against Secret. It wasn't that the strategy wasn't solid. It was that they absolutely spaced out and they didn't perform what they were supposed to do. So, if you keep sort of if they keep losing that matchup, and it just becomes this whole sort of thing where every time you meet them, you're like, oh no, we're gonna lose to these guys again. We can't.
It's like the opposite of an.
That's when you get into trouble. But I don't think we're there yet. I think like they've seen it happen twice, but I don't think that's
the other thing is also remember that this because there was a roster change in Secret. Liquid's at a huge disadvantage because they're staying with the same players, and we're on the same patch. So Secret have a huge amount of information about Liquid and how Liquid are going to do specific things, whereas Liquid has very little information about what style we're going to see out of Secret. And
yeah, but we're also talking such a short term still that Liquid's going to have the synergy within the lineup, which Secret isn't going to have in place quite yet.
So it's really Liquid's chemistry versus all the information Liquid is given Secret will ultimately determine this matchup.
As one last point I'd like to concede on this is that maybe one thing that Liquid has going for them is that they do have a lot of information to look back on. I mean, Secret is staying with the same support pairing of Papi and Palada, and one of the things that statistically was very different between the teams at the Shanghai Major was Liquid had the second highest ward counter rate of any team. It was only Alliance that had a higher counter ward rate, and Secret had, I think, the lowest or second lowest. One of the teams who got eliminated might have had lower because they just didn't have time to place wards on the way out. But Secret had excellent warding, primarily by Palada. And that is a big area for Liquid to improve on. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that Liquid can just, get better, stay, and they're a team that's stayed together. So that might tip the scales in their favor. Secret might be focusing on macro issues as opposed to micro issues, and Liquid can afford to focus on the micro issues. So
definitely a couple of popular choices and very tiny details. Sounds like it'll separate this matchup once they finally get to Manila. Now, Lee,
oh boy,
our two experts have predicted two teams, and yet you've gone a different direction. Let's hear it.
Well, I mean, as a person who likes to go against the grain as much as possible, instead of going with Secret and Fnatic and Team Liquid, I decided to go a little off the grid a bit and go for complexity as my favorite. I love complexity. Wow. Wow. Noxville laughing his ass off over there.
Well, I mean, it's like if you paused the world and you just asked everyone, like in the Dota channels that I'm in, who are the American people going to predict winning ESL Manila? I mean, it's like, okay,
but in defense of Lee, I mean, and as a fellow American, I think he's onto something here. Let's hear him out.
I mean, the thing is that like I always kind of stop and look at who's playing, and even if I wasn't an American, I'd say complexity, because a part of me always understands that the underdog has to prove something. And I would say that the underdoggiest of the underdogs at ESL Manila, of the 8 teams, I would say either Wings Gaming or Complexity, and those are the two. Like, come on, look at them.
Think Complexity actually stands a chance.
But Complexity actually stands a chance.
I'm sorry.
I mean, because look at the team as it stands. They went through the entire kerfluffle of the shuffle, and they stood their ground. I know. I read Dr. Seuss while we were away.
Yeah.
Yay. But think about it. I mean, you've got Swindle Melons, Z Freak, like those two brothers, they get each other very well. And I am looking so forward to seeing what they can pull off, because just like the duo of Puppy and Dindy of the past, these two have the possibility to pull off some amazing Dota plays.
Are you talking about in the draft specifically, or are you talking about in-game?
In-game. I mean, draft-wise, they're kind of interesting. Yeah. But I mean, like, in-game, like, I'm looking forward to what they can pull off. I mean, that's my opinion on the matter. I mean, because I like to look away from the Team Secret and whatnot, because we talk about them all day, every day. Okay, cool, big deal. Let's move on to people that we want to get better. Because the moment the bad teams and the teams that aren't tier 1 get better, we can start seeing better Dota that's being played. And that's what I want to see. I want to see better Dota being played. That's my goal.
Complexity certainly elevated their game recently. Whether or not they can bring that together at Manila obviously remains to be seen. Knoxville, SunTzu, you guys are the Euros. Tell us why Americans are so horribly wrong.
Yeah, I'm not from
Does anybody remember TI5?
That's what I'm saying. It's like to point out, I'm not from Europe. I don't.
Where are you now? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Europe right now.
Oh my God! Don't even try. You're the worst moon man.
That counts. We take.
Oh my God!
That's literally like saying that Complexity is an American team.
They are. They're based in like Orlando.
40% Americans. I mean, if you're supporting Complexity 100%, you should be supporting Secret 50% because they've got half the number of Americans on their team.
But how
Secret's
does
actually 60%? Secret's got more North American players than Complexity.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
I mean, you could argue that being full of Swedes actually gives Complexity an advantage.
Oh no, no, he's in Finland.
I mean.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Sweden is the European equivalent of South Korea. It absolutely is.
Best Korea.
That's kind of best Korea.
That is
North
the best
Korea's
Korea.
Best
But okay,
Korea.
but in all defense of Complexity and their play style, they're a team that's working hard towards the future. That nothing seems to get them down. They seem to improve from land to land. What in your estimation, since you both picked different teams, is going to stop this team from crossing the finish line?
Okay, so Complexity has played the most this patch of any team per team, and they also have like top 5 win rates of the teams with 50 or more games. The one key word for them is motivated. I think that's like absolutely, like without a doubt, one of the most important things for them, because everyone on their team is like absolute, like there's no one on their team who you can say is like slacking and isn't like improving drastically tournament to tournament, and that's like one of the most like redeeming characteristics. And there's also, in some sense, like a lot riding on this tournament. Remember, that's the Manila Majors coming up. No one's 100% sure who's invited, who isn't invited. Both them and Fnatic came 5th or 6th at Shanghai. And one has to think that if they make top 4 or top 2 at this event, they've pretty much locked the spot to the Manila Major. So for them, maybe coming first isn't the most important thing, but if they do come first, they're 100% guaranteed a spot at Manila. And they've got the easier group.
And then we'll see another good American team, like not just EG, because I mean EG right now is in like American.
I actually want to pop over to SunTzu really quick. We're running out of time, so give us your sync thoughts on why you think Complexity will fall to Liquid ultimately.
Well, I think Complexity and Liquid play sort of similar styles. They both play a lot of mid-game team fighting. Yeah. I think Liquid plays it better. So Complexity is going to lose that matchup in the groups. But that actually sets them up to face Secret in the semifinals. And Complexity probably doesn't have the same choking under pressure against Secret problem. And their play style is actually pretty good against Secret. So we might actually see Complexity eliminate Secret in the semifinals. That's not impossible.
That would be an epic.
That would be a real
change pace for the Dota scene.
But that's actually not impossible if you look sort of at how they play.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for your insight. Obviously, we're all looking forward to ESL Manila. A lot of questions to be answered, and a lot of claims to be staked.
I like it. Staking the claims.
Staking. Is what we do. Nox, SunTzu, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Your insight, as always, is greatly appreciated. You both look dapper as hell, and thanks for joining us.
Nox, we'll go play some Dota, buddy.
Yeah, go.
I'm going to sleep. I got work in like 5 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you. Double thank you, then, for coming on the show at this late hour where you're located. You guys have an excellent night. That's going to do it for the ESL Manila discussion, but coming up next, we have a lesson from the lovely and talented Tiffany, who will teach us a little bit about the importance of keeping track of ultimate timings during major team fights.
Hello everyone, I'm Tiffany and welcome to Tiffany Teaches Team Fights. This week we jump into Na'Vi versus Team Empire from Dream League Season 5. 15 minutes in, Na'Vi try to take Roche, which ends in a bloodbath as 9 heroes die, leaving Empire's Spectre the only remaining hero. Let's take a look. After picking an early game control lineup, Na'Vi don't quite control the early game and attempt to sneak Roche under Empire's lack of vision. But Empire had a feeling, and Na'Vi can't quite take Roche fast enough. Spectre haunts in right onto the IO, and Empire go in. Viper and IO are caught in the static storm. Earth Spirit rolls into an icy death by frost arrows, but manages to drop Magnetize onto all 4 of Na'Vi's heroes. IO escapes kinetic field, only to be glimpsed back into death. And while Bane chases after Nature's Prophet, the trapped Viper falls to the other 3 from Empire. While Spectre and Puck chase and finish off the Drow, Batrider finally arrives and finishes off Disruptor. Bane kills Nature's Prophet with a Fiend's Grip and a Nightmare, just for fun, and joins Batrider to target Puck. But Spectre has returned, and even a lasso can't save the Bane. Puck finally falls, but Batrider's fiery escape is foiled by a timely urn charge, and he falls before you can even get to Roche for the deny. In the end, Na'Vi is wiped, and Empire has 4 down, with Spectre with an ultra kill. Oh, and Roche and Aegis on top of that as well. So what happened? When Na'Vi took Roche, Empire had quite a few ults up. Dream Coil, Static Storm, Magnetize, and Haunt. With all these ults up, not enough damage to take Roche quickly, and already looking at a slight disadvantage, the timing of Na'Vi's Roche attempt was less than ideal. And though Na'Vi put up a good fight, in the end, Spectre was sitting very pretty and very fed. So remember, be aware of ult timings, or you could get caught up in a static storm with no way to escape that nightmare. This has been Tiffany Teaches Team Fights, back to you at the desk.
I always learn something when I see those. That doesn't mean I apply it in my pubs.
Not at all.
That intelligent,
I like the rewind she did. That was
I
cool.
do appreciate it. Tiffany coming on to teach us another valuable lesson. And be careful the next time you go into Roche that Haunt isn't up.
It never is, though. It's like 140 40 seconds.
It is an awful long cooldown, and my friends in the pub seem to use it
immediately.
Very
what's up, guys? Just use it.
That's gonna do it for the team fight discussion. Joining us next is North American broadcaster extraordinaire, the most handsome man in broadcasting in North America. Travis,
I don't know if I go that far.
Yeah, right.
You got the best voice. As soon as the
Cap has something to say to you.
Where will you be when the
Oh
Maut
my God.
voice hits? As soon as you come on the mic, you know it. Maut, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me the kind words, even though I really don't deserve them, but I appreciate it nonetheless. So thanks, and hopefully you guys are doing well as well.
We are. Broadcasters in Dota are so fucking humble, man. I swear to God.
They're really nice. Yeah. Better than CS:GO casters.
They're confident dudes. I'll give that to them. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of confidence. Maut, you're joining us from it looks like your home. Any big projects or anything that you've been up to lately before we get into our discussion? I don't want to miss your chance to sort of publicize anything cool that you're doing in the Dota world right now.
Right now, it's just been a couple of smaller tournaments that we've done for Moonduck, in between our captain's draft and our other content that we're doing, and obviously the Manila major and the qualifiers that we're going to be doing as well. So for now, kind of it's a little bit of a break before a big tournament. The next big thing I'm doing is going to be part of a Manila major hub, but I won't go into too much detail into that. But there's going to be a lot of cool people that I'm sure, like, a lot of the big broadcasters will be there for the most part is really all I can say. That's the next big thing that'll be during the qualifiers for the Manila Major. Other than that, I've just been lounging around. I was in the hospital recently due to sinusitis, and I had to deal with that for a bit. So I'm kind of trying to get back to my old self and just, I guess, cast as much Dota as possible, which has been pretty good over the past couple of days.
Now, you guys are up all hours of the night sometimes. We spoke to, I believe it was Capitalist on last week's show, and he literally had to broadcast the Chinese qualifiers like 3 or 4 hours after we spoke to him. Yeah. Do you find that pulling the weird hours and really going on the casting grind affects your health severely?
No, I don't. Because you usually get that sleep anyways. Like, that's the biggest thing. As long as you're getting 8 hours of sleep a night or a day, depending on when you end up falling asleep, I think it's fine. And I think every caster knows that feeling of, okay, well, it's 2 a.m. now. I have to cast some, SEA or Chinese Dota. Let's get to it. The only problem is you have to make sure that you are in a soundproof environment or something that's not going to, wake. Because we yell really loud. Like, I'm a very loud person. And I think, Cap and all those guys, too. But so you have to make sure that you're in an area where you're not like with somebody, like you don't live in an apartment with other people, or if you do, you have good soundproofing, which is the biggest problem. As far as health goes, unless I'm like traveling all over the world and then I'm really like, and then I'm on top of that, I'm on like the SCA schedule or the Chinese schedule for that particular tournament, then I might be, it might start affecting my health. Then I might get a cold, which might develop into something more. The land flu also, anytime I go to an event, there's a good chance that I'll acquire land flu for the most part. So that's something I also have to worry about. But other than that, no, not really. It's usually fine.
Well, it sounds like you're keeping pretty busy. Moonduck has some really cool things going on. Talk to me a little bit about tell me what you can tell me about the Manila Major Hub coming up, because it sounds like there's some cool stuff going on there.
What I can tell you for now is that I will be on the majority, I think, and I've been doing a lot of SEA games as of recently because we've done a tournament called the SEA Kappa tournament, which is, by the way, just the best name ever. Yeah. And that was a nice it's like a bunch of $10,000 tournaments, and all of the big SEA teams are in it. We were able to do the first season of that. So I've been covering a lot of SEA games. And so God's told me, he's like, we're going to put you on the SEA stuff. And I thought that was really nice. And I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to be doing. Whereas a lot of people will consider me as an American broadcaster, someone that does a lot of North American stuff. I'm going to have a switch and I'm going to head over to SEA, which I'm pretty excited about. Other than that, I mean, you can kind of infer from what I've already told you where I'm going to be going. And the majority, I could just like list off some of the people that are going to be there for the most part. It's going to be a couple of the Moonduck guys. It's going to be a couple of the BTS guys, and then a couple of other people from the Good Studio. So that's kind of what we're putting together, at least for now. And that seems to be coming together. We got our flights booked. I think we have everything really set up and ready to go. So we're kind of getting excited about that, and hopefully, and every time it's really just a really good chance for us to, chill together and hang out together, because we're all friends. Like every single one of us, we're all friends. We spend enough time with each other. I mean, we play Mafia with each other, for God's sakes. If you're not a friend after playing Mafia with people, then I don't know what the hell you need to do to be friends. So That's a big part of hanging out and just having a good time. So it's really great that we get to broadcast this like high tier quality Dota, and on top of that, like after we're done, just like drink or chill. And drinking is an important part of our day's broadcasting there. So
we can completely agree with that one. Okay, so you mentioned that you were doing the SEA Kappa tournament, and recently I think I saw that it was Fnatic versus SeaTac. What was the team's name? What did you think about that match? Because, I mean, like, you as a caster, I was wondering, do you ever have the caster's curse? Do you ever feel like you affect what happens in the match somehow, like meta ways?
Sometimes. I mean, like, but a lot of it's just superficial. Like, we'll say one thing and then another thing is going to happen, and then you're just like, well, that's kind of weird. But the caster curse kind of thing doesn't happen that much as you'd like to think it would. But, well, Fnatic actually just won the tournament. They beat Signature Trust in a best-of-5 series earlier today, which was... it was actually a lot of fun to cast. The games were really good. Fnatic looked amazing in all 3 games that they won. They lost one at the beginning of the series, so it ended up going 4 games, which I thought was really cool. Fnatic is probably one of the best teams right now, and even like they're the best team in that region, and that makes them one of the best overall in the world, which makes me excited to see what they can do come Manila Major, assuming they get invited, but we'll wait and see if that's the case.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the SEA Kappa tournament because it seems to be a part of sort of a growing. Well, I mean, growing. There's another tournament, BTS
SEA
America.
is huge already.
Well, specifically about these smaller tournaments outside of these larger tournament structures like Dream League and the major system that seem designed just to get people's feet wet in specific regions. What role do you think these tournaments are playing? Because obviously, ever since BTS America started, a lot of North American teams have started to play a little bit better from playing in that competitive environment. Do you think that there's sort of I don't know, ground to be made for you guys now that the big broadcasts have sort of been co-opted by Valve to sort of cultivate these regions with interesting tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, these tournaments are invaluable to every scene, especially the SEA and America, and especially South American scene. Like, these tournaments are so important. If these tournaments didn't exist, then you wouldn't be seeing the type of Dota that we see at the tier 2 level of American play, the tier 2 level of SEA play would not be as high as it is right now. And a lot of that has to do with tournaments like BTS Americas, like Dota 2 Canada Cup in America, like the SEA Kappa tournament. Like, the play is like, it's the main function of these tournaments, is to bridge the gap between those tier 1 and tier 2 teams. And a lot of the times, those tier 1 teams won't necessarily be in the tournament. Maybe 1 or 2 tier 1 teams will be in that tournament, but it allows for those other tier 2 teams to play up against each other and kind of grow as a whole. That's where complexity came from, the Dota 2 Canada Cup / BTS America scene. It's where Digital Chaos came from in terms of when they first started out. Like, those were the big teams, Archon obviously as well. So it transitioned those teams from being those maybe tier 1.5 to tier 2.5 to tier 2, maybe to that tier 1, or almost to that tier 1, especially for complexity, that tier 1 kind of squad. So you have these teams, they're playing up, even though it's a small prize pool, it's better than just scrimming, which is the thing. Like, a lot of the top tier teams will just scrim and only scrim. And the problem with that is that you're not taking it as seriously, whereas all these other teams are playing in these like smaller tournaments and they're getting a nice bit of prize pool, and it's not only helping out the players, but it's also helping out the region because it allows for more exposure, and it allows for things like the Manila Major and ESL Manila to actually end up happening. Like, these other smaller tournaments lead into these bigger tournaments, and it actually helps the scene overall, not just for the players as well. So it's really important that these tournaments exist. Without them, we'd see a lot more scrimming. We'd see maybe in-houses would be more popular because there's nowhere else to play. But if these tournaments didn't exist, I think that at the very least, and I can say this for certainty, the NAC would be in some trouble. So you have to tip your hat to, I think, the BTS squad as well as the Dota 2 Canada Cup squad, because if they weren't these tournaments, you might be in trouble in terms of finding really good places to play those tier 2 teams for America and for SEA. So.
Now, my follow-up question, and as great as it is to see all of the progress made in these regions, especially North America, Southeast Asia, smaller regions with great Dota populations that maybe haven't seen their time in the sun, is it frustrating for the players that that these tournaments don't somehow feed into the official major structure, or is playing for some money and playing for the chance to play against other tier 1 teams enough motivation for them? And follow-up, do you think that we've actually seen I should rephrase that. Have you specifically seen progress from these smaller teams over casting several of these cups in a row?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking about complexity. Like complexity used to be a team where you'd be like, wow, they're going up against EG, they're going to get slaughtered. There's no way complexity take that series. Now people are like, complexity versus EG, that's not so cut and dry anymore. Complexity were a team that they just focus on getting better over a long time, especially this new complexity roster. Like they just got better because of these tournaments that they played in. And it's not just them either. Like Archon wouldn't have made the major had they had not played in some of these tournaments. And it's not just these other teams. It's not just Archon. It's not just complexity, or at least the former Archon, as they're not really, together anymore. But it's all the other teams. Even the tier 3 teams are getting better and taking games off of those squads too. So it's kind of interesting that the competition has risen because of these tournaments. But as far as your other question goes, whether or not the players are like, man, I really wish we can get some more money, or man, I really wish we could get to play against some of these world-class teams a little bit more. Sure, I think there's some frustration there, but that's kind of what the qualifiers are for. And I think teams are just kind of happy to be in a position where they can play Dota consistently for a decent enough prize pool. Yes, you have to win in a lot of these smaller tournaments in order to be able to actually make a living off of it. Like, because 10K is not a big prize pool, or even 20K is not a big prize pool. And if you have to split that up between 5 people, plus the fact that your first place isn't 20K, it's whatever, like 10K or something like that, the other 5K for second place. So you kind of, it does make it so it's a little bit harder, but you add all of these other smaller tournaments up, and eventually teams are kind of getting a pretty good split when it comes to all these other smaller tournaments. And I would like to see more integration from Valve. I would, not necessarily going the full league route and kind of integrating everything into their esports system, but we know Valve to be this such a hands-off approach to Dota. It's almost laissez-faire in terms of how they view Dota and how they view esports. And when they announced the major system, everything was like, wow, that's amazing. Finally, we have some stability in the scene. But it also creates some counter stability, because other tournaments that could be running at the same time that could be helping these tier 2, tier 3 teams aren't necessarily going in, so they kind of have to fill a void. So I think it's a double-edged sword in that regard. So I would like to see some more involvement from Valve at the very least when it comes to maybe integrating these tournaments. It's a possibility. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but there's still we have a long way to go before we really grow this scene. I mean, we're the first couple of years of this major system, and who knows where it can go from here, which is really cool.
Sorry. You were talking about how you wish that Valve would actually put their hands into Dota and the esports scene a little bit more. As a caster, what do you think do you think a little bit more stability and some sort of like payment system for casters would be beneficial? What are your thoughts on that, actually?
God, that would be outstanding. Let me tell you. I can't tell you how much a casters union or any sort of stability would help me in particular, and help a lot of the casters out as well, because it's kind of just a mad grab for a lot of tournaments. And a big problem with that is that BTS enjoying Dota, and obviously I'm not going to complain about BTS enjoying Dota because, number one, a lot of these guys are my friends, and number two, they've built the scene to what it is today in terms of esports commentary and Dota commentary. But, there's just such a small amount of tournaments that are being kind of fought over by so many people, and Join Dota and BTS get the first dibs. And I'm glad that they're getting these first dibs, and I'm glad they're getting the opportunities to run these tournaments because they're the best at what they do. They have the best commentators. They have the best. They have the best hosts. They have the best production usually in all regards. But it would help if there were other tournaments. If it's hard to put into words. I just like we need kind of a casters union so that stuff at the Shanghai Major doesn't happen. We need to have more, I think, openness when it comes to invites to events, because you're sitting here wondering if you're going to get invited to a major or to a whatever from Valve or whoever right before the tournament starts, pretty much. And you're sitting that's kind of how it was for me with TI4 when I got invited. I had to wait, and I got a message from Ice Frog a week beforehand, and they're like, hey, do you want to cast TI? And I was freaking out at the time because I thought I'm not going to get invited. And so it's that kind of feeling that you have to deal with. And so it's just very stressful and strenuous to feel like, am I going to get invited to this event? Am I going to be able to get paid for this event? How is Valve? Does Valve give a damn about what we're going through, what we're struggling with? And I said, and I made the mistake of saying this on a What the Duck. I said that I think Valve only exclusively caters to the players. And the players got all up in arms thinking that and saying that, hey, Valve doesn't cater to us nearly as much as you think. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I misspoke, but at least they kind of cater to you to a certain extent. When it comes to commentary, at least from what I've seen, and obviously a lot has changed since TI4, it wasn't necessarily, they didn't really cater to us. And I felt like that was the biggest issue for me. And like, I have no room to talk. I've been pretty blessed with the opportunity I've been given, and I maybe didn't make the best of those opportunities, but I feel as if though there could be better communication from Valve, from other tournament organizers, from the entire collective casting group as a whole. I feel like we could all, it's so damn competitive, and which is the problem. Like all of these people are my friends, but I'm also competing against every single one of them, which makes life super stressful for me because I don't know if I'm getting another gig. I don't know if I'm getting, if I'm going to get invited to this next hub. I don't know if, or that's what my thought process was. I don't know if I'm getting invited to, this X LAN or Y tournament. So as far as casting is concerned, and I know this is kind of a broad answer to your question. I kind of just went off the deep end a little bit.
No, that's it, man. You're good. That's fine.
I feel like there's just so much more we could explore with our profession, because we're all every single one of us, every single caster out there that you know of works so hard to do this as a full-time career and a full-time profession. And it's so difficult because you have so many different factors flying overhead. It's kind of a whirlwind, to be honest with you, in a lot of instances. So I just want us to find something that we can all kind of agree on, have a common ground, and go from there. Because number one, the most important thing for me is to keep my friends, because all of them are my friends, and I love working with them. And then number two is to make sure that we all have, and somebody posted this on Twitter recently, is that we all have there's enough room in esports for us to all be successful. And I wish that were true, and I hope that it's true, and maybe it is true, and I'm not just seeing it. But I have not seen that success as of yet for everyone in the scene. So.
Wow, that's a lot, man. I really hope that one day there is a casters union of some sort. And it seems like
all right.
Oh boy, here we go.
That made it sound way more stressful than it should have been. But that was just like, you have to realize that nobody's ever asked me that question, and I've been thinking about that question for like 4 years of my life, and so like I kind of had to dump it all out there. So I apologize if that was more than you were kind of willing to.
No, that's what fine. I wanted. We want the realness. I would love to have like a real, like your realism and the caster's point of view, because I feel like nobody really gives you guys a soapbox to speak on about what goes on in the behind the scenes for the casters and whatnot.
And then, but if you speak out, then people think you're complaining about, you're a caster, you're broadcasting and commentating and doing what you love for a living. And let me tell you, it is not that easy. It is nowhere even near that cut and dry, which is the unfortunate thing. Everyone's like, man, you're talking about video games for a living. Shut up. And I'm just like, while you're sort of correct in that, you're also way off bases. So.
Yeah, it's sort of a loaded comment, because at the same time that you're sort of trivializing it as you're just talking about a video game, it's like, yes, I have to know all of the complexities of this game in order to
Oh my God! Why did I heard you say it? And I was like, what?
I need to know
intricacies,
the intricacies of this game. I need to know what's going on in a wide, varied, and disparate scene. I need to understand how these variables all affect one another, and then I need to translate that into language that the public can understand. I mean, you can say all you do is fly a plane.
Oh, that's cute.
But like, just like saying all you do is broadcast video games, there's a lot more that goes into it.
I like it. That's definitely true. You're absolutely right. And I want to just keep going a little bit about this topic.
Please.
You're absolutely right. Like, it's the amount of knowledge that you have to have. And for anybody there's a lot of people out there who want to get into casting. And I've actually, I forgot about this, by the way. And now that I've remembered, I'm a little bit sad that I didn't tell you beforehand. But I actually do casting coaching. And I've been doing casting coaching for a couple of weeks. I've taken a couple of days off recently. But there are so many people that want to get into casting. They just don't have an idea of how hard it is when they first start, or how much effort they have to put in. They're like, wow, I actually have to like really go hard on this, right? I do, to actually be really good. I'm like, yeah, you do. You have to put a lot of effort in. Otherwise, it's just not going to work for you. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of have to curb their expectations for all the people that want to get into casting, which is kind of crazy that there's so many people out there who are interested and want to get into it. But yeah, I mean, just the sheer amount of knowledge, you're casting one scene one day, you're casting another scene the other day, and just kind of like, well, I have to keep all of these teams and strats in my head. So I love casting. Don't get me wrong. And I tweeted this earlier today. If I could cast every day of, every hour of every day for the rest of my life, I would be completely happy, because I love Dota more than just about anything in the world. And if I could keep doing this, it would be a dream for me. So.
Now, obviously, you've got a lot of well-informed opinions about the matter and about how we could sort of improve things. My question is this. With looking at the major system, and while we've sort of spread out the culture of all or nothing that the International sort of created. If a team didn't make the International, then the whole year was a flop. If a caster didn't make the International, then what was all that work for? And we've sort of spread it out across the majors, and yet it sounds like, from your opinion and according to the people who have noticed the sort of roster instability that the major system has created, that there's still some work to be done. There's still some stability that needs to be put in this system. My question to you is, what's something that we can do, what's something that Valve can do, what's something that the community of Dota can do in the next 6 months to create a better, a more stable system for broadcasters like yourself?
I wouldn't mind seeing minor tournaments run by Valve. I know that seems like a stretch because, again, how laissez-faire Valve is, but I wouldn't mind seeing Valve create minor online tournaments, that don't require much production. They can hand these tournaments off to, each studio, whether that's just Join Dota or BTS, or whether that includes other studios or other casters as well.
Moonduck.
I mean, Moonduck, to put it in there, yeah, for sure. Just create these minor tournaments and kind of turn them into what Canada Cup and BTS Americas are. But I feel like Valve's probably okay with where we are currently. I feel like Valve doesn't really need it. The games in terms of players, we have the most amount of players we've ever had. I think unique players per month at this point in time. But viewership-wise, I feel like we're kind of struggling. Counter-Strike is starting to take hold, and not shocking because I was a huge Counter-Strike fan, and I think a lot of people are huge Counter-Strike fans. But that's starting to overtake Dota, and Dota's viewership, I think, has dropped a significant amount. So if you here's the problem: you can create minor tournaments, and that creates more stability for those tier 2, tier 3 teams. It also creates more stability for the casters, depending on how you divvy it out. But also at the same time, everyone's talking about oversaturation and how there's too many tournaments, and a lot of these people don't want to watch these tier 2 teams. They want to watch these top, these tier 1 teams, and I guess the incentives have to be high enough that these tier 1 teams want to compete. And even if they aren't high enough incentives, will they still compete because it's an online tournament? Like, there's all these questions that you have to wonder about. So other than the fact that I know that we're not quite where we need to be in terms of player roster locks and contracts and the major system, we're still kind of early on in that process. I actually don't really have any ideas as to how to fix it other than, throwing a couple of minors here and there. But even that just, I'd have to think a lot more about the entire situation. The whole minor system is just a thought that came out for me, and that's about it.
Well, valuable thought nonetheless. Maut, thank you so much for sharing sort of the experience of being a broadcaster. I think it's hard for us sitting at home to really understand what goes on over there.
I've got one more question for you, Maut. Okay, so off the top of my head, because I've been thinking about this for a long time, and from a caster's perspective, did you get a chance to see the VR little tidbit that Valve released a couple days ago?
I saw a video from Wickram. I think he posted about VR. I didn't see the actual Valve release VR thing. It was the one that had you had the heroes on the side, and there was a mini map in the middle, and I can't remember what else was. You have to link me that video.
I'll link you the video later. But so I was looking at it from a caster's perspective, and I think that might be, you were talking about the next step for casters, and I'm extremely excited about that as the owner of Revive myself. I'm super excited about where it's going, and I'm curious about what you think you and the rest of the casters community could put together and then present with that as well, because it feels feels like from a viewer's perspective, listening to the cast, listening to the person speaking and whatnot, listening to how excited you get and being in the action, that could be a whole nother level of experience and ridiculousness that adds to the Dota 2 community. I was just going to ask about that.
I don't know, because Dota 2 is played isometrically on a 2D plane. That makes it a little tough. It's not the type of game where VR is big. I know that from maybe a spectator standpoint, it might be interesting. I'm interested in the amount of production value and quality that you could get if you were maybe, not necessarily streaming, but you had to stream to a VR set. It's tough because I feel like there's more production value to be had with VR. But we don't know really anything about it yet. At least I don't. And I know that maybe Pitmuckle has found some interesting, because I know he owns a Vive, and I talk with him a lot. Maybe he knows more about the vibe and how it would and how VR would work with Dota 2 broadcasting. Maybe he thinks it's good. Knowing him, he'll probably just be like, no, it's terrible, because he's always super negative.
Cynical.
But,
yeah, he's great.
I would say it sounds interesting, but I honestly have no idea. Like, I really want VR to work, and I think VR will work, and it looks really cool. But for me, I don't really know much about it and how it affects Dota is all I can really tell you right now.
No worries, just wanted your opinion. Thank you, though.
Well, thanks again, Maut. We really appreciate you coming on. Any shout-outs or anything before we close up shop? Where can people find you on social media?
You can check me out over at Maut Dota on Twitter, and I think I have a Facebook as well, which is Maut Dota or Maut Dota 2. I think it's Maut Dota 2 for Facebook if you want to check me out there. My Twitch channel is also twitch.tv/MautDota2, and then Moonduck TV, of course, at Moonduck TV on Twitter, which, of course, is the studio that I'm currently working with. And any shout-outs? Shout out to you guys for having me on and providing a great show, and shout out to all the other casters out there who know what it's like going through the struggle that we go through on a daily basis. And I guess shout out to all the people that watch us and hopefully support us.
Well, thanks so much, Maut. We appreciate you coming on the show. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate your words. That's going to do it for us tonight. Big shout out to Maut, SunTzu, and Nox for coming on the show, and of course our man behind the scenes, Stephen Toffees Pierce. Who does more than you can imagine. A great bearded fellow who we hope to have in Austin, Texas someday to stop by the studio and say hello.
Shiner Buck.
Say hello.
A couple beers. Brewskis?
I was like, what the fuck does that have to do?
No, I was just like, we can... Okay, whatever.
Fair, we'll share a Shiner by. Okay, I see where that is now. Folks, if you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit that follow button down below the Twitch window. If you're feeling particularly generous, hit that $4.99 subscribe button. Every month you get access to the .fire and .fan emotes, basically dumpster fire and shit hitting the fan. For whatever reason, we picked the two most chaotic emotes. I like to spam them when fights go awry. At the majors seems to pretty up the chat a little bit. If you want to catch the video after the fact, we post the VODs over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/daily.esports. If you want more esports coverage, check us out over on Facebook, facebook.com/daily.esports, and over on Twitter @esports. I have been Ian J. Barker. This has been the handsome Lee Massey Malice, and this has been True Sight. Join us again next week for more meme-free news analysis and tomfoolery, and we will see you next time. Now, do us a favor in the meantime and play some
more Dota.
Play some.
Sorry, I wanted to interrupt you.
Play some.